There is a simple step-by-step method on how to paint sunset like this one, but I didn't know about this method until I spent more than hundreds of hours painting sunsets, and many professional artists seem to not know about this, or at least maybe they don't want to share this. But it doesn't seem reasonable because they would probably make a lot of money out of it. I want to bet that they probably do this intuitively, therefore they don't see it. So if you're looking to improve your watercolor sunsets, then this video is for you. And a quick disclaimer as I'm sketching is that as of the recording of this video, I have not seen anybody show this method. And believe me, I spent a lot of time in different YouTube tutorials and channels. But now that that's out of the way and I'm done sketching, let's get into it. I don't know if you noticed, but I spent less than 1 minute sketching. And this is because the easiest way to learn how to paint better skies is when you actually focus on the sky, making the shape of the land or the landscape just very simple, not focus on that, because otherwise it'll be distracting and you're gonna be bugged by all these little details, which yes, they're necessary and we'll get into it. But first thing is do not focus on sketching everything in the landscape. If you're gonna paint the sunset, focus on that first. At least I have found that to be extremely useful, and it makes my paintings or my skies look much better. But that's not actually the method that I'm going to show you. That's just general advice that if you're planning to paint the sunset or the sky is the main subject, do not focus on anything else. Now what we're going to want to do if we're going to paint the sunset is start with the lightest colors first. I've seen a lot of tutorials that teach you to go from blue, then to red, and then to like yellow. I mean, of course you're mixing all these colors, right? You're not actually putting just red in the sunset, you're making orange like I'm mixing right now. Problem with that as a beginner is that we don't have that much control over our washes. Sometimes we go too dark, sometimes we go too light, and therefore we don't get the results that we want. The better way to do this is starting with the yellow, because yellow is the lightest color in terms of value. A close color to yellow is green, and sometimes we avoid having green in our sunsets, but if you actually see sunsets, they do have green. As you can see, I'm adding a very light layer of green, and then I add a little bit of blue just because I know I need it to be a little bit darker. And since I know that orange is a little bit closer to red than yellow, green will act as a complement and become a gray. But I'm not done with this. I will probably come back to it later. Now I'm mixing the red that's gonna go in the corners. They will help to emphasize the rim light in the clouds, and also prevent that when we add a much thicker layer of blue, the yellow will not actually look green. This might not look like much now. In fact, it looks very weird and wrong. But notice how much easier it is for me to go back and forth with my brush. My water is almost clear because I haven't had to wash it almost at all. Because to mix orange, you just gradually add red to the yellow, not the other way around. Now here I'm gonna have to mix a very thick wash. I need to make this as thick as I can so I can apply it once. The key to great skies is to go in and go out as fast as you can. I try to use white as well so the paint would be more opaque. Otherwise it will be translucent and you'll be able to see the previous layer, and that's not something I want. Maybe in some places, but not everywhere. One thing I'm still struggling with is making very thick washes like this one and still have them flow. So if you have a tip for me, just leave it in the comments below. Now what I want to do is cover a really big area with this color because it's the most dominating color in the scene, and therefore I can use it freely because I know that the next layers of paint are gonna be darker, and this is a good base for my next layers. Now you're gonna notice that I'm using a little bit more cobalt teal for the bottom. It's very slight, and that's only because when I'm seeing and looking out the window, the snow has a very blue-green tone. And now for the clouds that are closer to the highlight, I know that they need to be warmer, and I don't need to add any reds or yellows to it because I have the under layer to help me with that. So I know that I don't have to worry about making this little clouds too thick because I want the underpaint or the previous layer to show, to give them that warmth, giving it the right color mixture that I would have to try to mix in the spot if it wasn't for the fact that it was already there. Now I'm gonna move up to the top of the cloud, which is a bit darker, and it is, since there's no light hitting it, it needs to be more blue. And as well, this part of the cloud has a lot more green, or little bit hints of green. But now I'm actually gonna paint the sky, and the sky is not actually just transparent like blue, because otherwise it would be too bright. And these sunsets, sometimes we think that, oh, because I'm looking into the light, I have to make it as light and transparent as possible in watercolor, and it's not always the case. So I use a lot of white to make the sky more opaque and also pale. And when I move to the top part of the cloud, I want to even go darker because this is the part of the cloud that is getting the least amount of light and therefore is more saturated in color. The clouds had a wispiness to them, and you see me trying to mimic that before I start moving down again into the edge of the highlight. Now here I want to come as well as thick as I can because I want the least amount of the underpaint or the previous layer of paint to shine through. One area of improvement here for myself is that I could have varied a little bit more the edges and show a little bit of a shape in the cloud, but the value and the color to me looks right, and that's a very small detail that when compared to getting the values right and then the colors right is so small and so unessential that it'll probably not show that much when I'm done. But now I pointed it out, and now you're always gonna see that. So now the cloud is getting closer to where the landmass is, and I'm gonna use the previous layer, the very first layer that I put down, as the landmass. I'm not actually gonna paint it positively. I'm not gonna go over it with another layer because that will only make the layer itself darker, and then therefore we're gonna miss the whole sense of light in the picture. And now I'm going over again with a different type of mix, a little bit more magenta or violet, to start darkening up things or warming up things in the edges of this highlight or this little window that you can see the color of the sunset, right? And I also test to see if the landmass needed a little bit more green with white, but the layer that I'm putting down is so small and like thin that you can't actually see much of it. And now one interesting thing happened. I told you that I was gonna come back to the sky, and I'm gonna use that same mixture I just made to make the sky really pop, because right now it doesn't really pop that much. It needs a little bit of darkness closer to the edge of the cloud so you can actually have the sense of light hitting the clouds. Otherwise it just looks like a window of yellow and you don't actually know that there's sky there. It almost looks as if you're looking straight into the sun, but you're not. And notice that even though the mixture is very close to green, or it is very blue-green, it still appears blue. That's the power of the grays. Some people call it muddiness, and I call it grayness. Grayness. Did you get it? I'm sorry. I'm just I don't know. I thought it was gonna be funny, but anyway. Now that the sky is really done, I can move on to the land, which is the least important part of the painting. However, details are usually darker, and for this to really come through as a landscape, I need to kind of show that there's something there, otherwise it looks incomplete. But I'm sorry to say that I lied. I'm not done with the sky. I just need to add just a bit of darkness to the top of the cloud, just so it feels as it's over me rather than away from me, if that makes sense. Now we're gonna move on to the ground as I finally move the camera, or I finally move the painting into frame, which has been annoying me this whole time, but I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to distract you from what I'm trying to teach right here. But yeah, I'm glad that that's finally done. And I also changed to a smaller brush because we don't need a big brush. One trick that I learned to paint distant trees is that you don't paint the individual trees. You make one shape, as you're gonna see me do right now, and then you will stylize that shape afterwards. You're gonna see that I'm just going around putting like a long kind of blob of paint that doesn't look like trees yet. But then I go back, and as you can see, I like slightly feather the blob. I mean, you can't really see because it's very small, but trust me when I say this, you do not need to paint every single tree. In this scenario as well, the main attraction is the sky. It's not the trees. They do add something to the landscape, but they're not the main attraction. However, one important role that they do play is helping with the contrast of light. So to assure that they are doing their job, I need to actually make these trees darker. And at the moment, they're not dark enough. You probably can notice that. But I will go back and make them a little bit darker, and then the whole picture is gonna come together. And I haven't realized that they're not dark enough because I'm rushing. I only have 15 minutes to do this or less, so pardon my oversight, but I do come back and give these trees a little bit more love so that the whole picture comes together in the end. And as I'm doing that, I want you to notice how nice the transition of the clouds are and how easy it was to actually go from very warm colors, so yellow, then going to red, then adding the blue on top of the red, which was kind of already as well a bit orange, and orange and blue are complementary, so that makes it gray, therefore they communicate better, and the whole color harmony comes together without you actually even trying. I didn't have to mix any individual colors. You could say that I leveraged the power of layering and complementary colors. Not only that, but by moving from light to dark as you should in watercolor, but also from the color value perspective, it just made my life so much easier. And it made this painting to be possible, to be painted plein air, because I'm actually painting from life. I'm not looking at the photograph that you're seeing, in under 15 minutes. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. But you know what will make your life even easier and all your paintings better and your days a little bit brighter? It's subscribing to this channel. Thanks for watching. Bye.